So I've been meaning to make this video for quite a while now, but I've just never really had the time to do it, but here it is anyway. So, should you really buy a Royal Enfield? Stick around and stay tuned. I'll give you my thoughts and opinions on that. I'm gonna give you guys a complete disclosure up front. I own a Royal Enfield Thunderbird, so you might think that I might be somewhat biased towards Royal Enfield, but I have ridden other bikes. I've ridden the entire range of Bonnevilles. I've ridden all the current KTMs, yeah, and I've ridden the Z800 and the ER6N, the outgoing version. So I'm pretty sure that would negate any biased opinions I might have. Another disclaimer, this is primarily for the classic bikes in the Royal Enfield range. So that includes the Electra, the Bullet, the Thunderbird and the Classic. More so for the 350cc rather than the 500cc. The Himalayan and the Continental GT are well kind of exclusive to this video. I have a separate video on the Himalayan, a full ride and review. Well, go ahead and check it out if you need to. So I'm going to divide this video into two main parts, myths and facts. I'm going to get the myths out of the way first. One of the biggest myths people tend to have about Royal Enfields are their high maintenance motorcycles. Well, this might have been a fact if your bike was manufactured pre-2015. But after 2015, mine's a 2015 model, and let me tell you this, they aren't service intensive motorcycles or maintenance intensive motorcycles. The Royal Enfield have done a great deal of research and they have amped up the quality of their products. So there isn't much maintenance required. As in, what I mean to say is that your regular services are required, your regular chain lubing and your tire maintenance and your brake pads and all that needs to be regularly serviced. I mean, that's what you have with every motorcycle. But it isn't intensive in the sense of constantly running to the workshop to get something repaired or the other thing. It all depends on how you maintain your motorcycle after you get it right. So if you regularly get it serviced and you make sure all the components are right and you keep your checks going, then it's not going to be much of a problem in terms of the servicing. However, if you don't do that, well, you're in for a lot of trouble anyway. Okay, the second thing I wanted to say is Royal Enfield have been selling their motorcycles on one fact, more or less, for the past decade. They keep saying history. Well, history and heritage. I do agree Royal Enfield the brand Royal Enfield has a lot of history and stuff, but come on man, so do other brands. Moto Guzzi has a lot of history. Triumph has a lot of history. Ducati has history. Norton has history. Java has history, but you don't see any of their motorcycles constantly going after the fact of only heritage to sell their motorcycles. They do deliver as well. So that's one thing I just wanted to get out of the way. A lot of people believe that Royal Enfields, to ride a Royal Enfield you have to be really tall and you need to have substantial amount of weight. Well, I completely disagree. I'm about 5'9", 5'10" on a good day, and I can completely flat foot this bike. No issues there. And I weigh a meager 63 kgs, I think. At least the last time I checked. And I have no problem handling this bike. I mean, it is heavy, I agree. It's about 200 kgs wet. So the bike is heavy, but I have no issues handling the bike. And for riders, let's say below 5'5", you might find it hard to get both feet completely on the ground. But 1 foot is good enough if you know how to handle your motorcycle. Now if the bike does fall, just say for some reason you tend to drop the bike, well, you might think it's really hard to pick up the bike, but that's because you're picking it up wrong. There's a technique into which you back into the bike and easily lift it up. So that's how you lift heavy motorcycles. So there goes your preconceived notion about height and weight of the rider. Yeah, okay, another point I wanted to talk about was off-roading on the Royal Enfield. Now, Royal Enfields can sure take a lot of shit. They're pretty rigid and robust motorcycles, but they aren't meant for off-roading. When I say off-roading, sure, a Royal Enfield can do small trails. I mean, if you check out some of my other videos, I have done a bit of off-roading on them, but they're just very non-intensive trails because of two reasons. First up, the motorcycle is really heavy. Another contributing factor is that the large wheelbase up front. Couple that with the weight of the bike and you will find your bike sinking into soft sand at every instance. So it becomes really hard to do. I'm not saying it's impossible to do it. It's really challenging and physically taxing to do it. So the last myth I want to talk about is the lack of ABS. There is no ABS, let me make that clear. But it's not like you can't do without ABS. If you ride the bike within legal speeds or speeds at which it's meant to be ridden, there is no need for ABS. I mean, of course, ABS is a boon. If you have ABS, it's phenomenal because there is that extra level of safety. But the lack of ABS should not hinder you from because you can do without ABS. Regulated braking and going at speeds at which you can control the motorcycle is all you need. Okay, so that's about all the myths I wanted to get out of the way before we continue this. So you can consider this as a Royal Enfield buyer's guide, or what you're in store for if you're planning to pick up a Royal Enfield. Now let's talk about some of the facts pertaining to this range of motorcycles. Yeah, the first point I wanted to talk about is these motorcycles are not performance oriented. Yeah, they aren't meant for the track. They aren't meant for high-speed chases. Well, if you're into that sort of a thing. So if you're thinking of outrunning a Duke, forget it. You can't. This bike is meant to be ridden in a very relaxed manner. You can have a lot of fun on the bike, sure, but you can't really do high speeds on the bike. You can do about 120, 125, but that's pushing it. Considering there's no ABS and doing those speeds, kind of dicey. Next up is the low power to weight ratio. The amount of power present is adequate, but I would have appreciated more. Because the bikes are really heavy, and to pull such a heavy frame, if you had more power, well, pickup would have been better. But I'm not saying it's not doable. You can easily manage with this much amount of power. So the 500cc's have almost the same weight as the 350cc motorcycles, but they have more power, so their power to weight ratio is better. Now, the vibrations. Yes, the vibrations are tremendous. Right, there is a lot of vibrations at your foot pegs and your handlebar. But it's not something which should deter you from buying the bike, because over a period of time you get used to it. I've been riding this motorcycle for quite a long time. I've done about 10,000 kilometers on it, which isn't much actually, but I have kind of gotten used to the vibrations, so it doesn't really bother me anymore. For someone who's buying into the brand, there is plenty of vibrations, so you're gonna have to get used to that. And I can give you an instance, I can give you an example right now. If I let go of this, just check out the brake lever. You see that? Yeah, and even the mirror shifted out of place. Well, that's something you're gonna have to live with. Next up is, the bike is a really simple bike. So it's simple to fix. you can do most of it on your own. Another point I wanted to talk about was their abundance of service stations, which is practically a boon to anyone who rides Royal Enfield. You have service stations scattered all over the country, so it's not going to be really too hard to get a problem fixed. So another point I wanted to talk about pertains to Royal Enfield as a brand and not any motorcycle in particular. It's definitely one of their shortcomings is their after-sales service. Their after-sales service is absolutely pathetic. I'm not talking about the service stations, because their service stations are really effective, they get the job done. I'm talking about their general attitude towards the customer after the purchase has been made. It's horrendous, guys. Royal Enfield just dole out test rides. So for those of you who are interested in buying into the brand, head to your nearest showroom and give it a test ride. See what you feel about the bike and then make a calculated choice. Royal Enfield bikes do have a lot of advantages and disadvantages, but if you can work your way around and live with the disadvantages, well, motorcycling is a rewarding experience on any bike anyway. So if you have any queries or questions, just post them down in the comments section and I will get back to you. So I hope what opinions and thoughts I've shared through the course of this video will help you guys into deciding whether to buy into the brand or not. And as always, I will see you next time.